Veilwalkers in my reflection. I was brushing my teeth late one night when I caught movement in the bathroom mirror that didn't match me. For a split second, a figure appeared behind my reflection, tall and thin, with shadows where its face should have been. I froze, convinced it was just fatigue, but the reflection lingered, twisting slightly, tilting its head as if studying me. I blinked, and the figure was gone, though the mirror felt heavier somehow, like it held a presence I couldn't see. That night, I kept checking every reflective surface, mirrors, windows, even spoons, and the figure never reappeared, but I could feel it watching. The next evening, I noticed the reflection in my hallway window was delayed, moving a fraction of a second after I did. I tried not to panic, rationalizing that my apartment lighting must be distorting it, but the delay persisted, growing longer each time I passed. Shadows seemed to stretch behind me in the mirror, reaching toward corners where nothing should exist. I began leaving towels over some reflective surfaces, but the Veilwalkers seemed to find any exposed glass or chrome. I caught glimpses of elongated limbs, too long to be human, bending the space in unnatural ways behind me. One night, I heard faint footsteps behind the mirror, soft but deliberate, synchronized with my own movements. I spun around, but the hallway was empty, silent except for the sound of my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. The next day, I found a message scrawled on the inside of my bathroom mirror. A single symbol, unfamiliar, glowing faintly in the reflection. I wiped it away, but it returned the following night, larger, more intricate, as if it had grown while I slept. The Veilwalkers didn't just observe, they marked, tracing patterns I couldn't comprehend, forcing me to watch. I tried filming the mirror with my phone, hoping to capture proof, but the footage showed only my reflection, perfectly normal, the figure gone. I couldn't convince anyone. Explaining it felt impossible, like describing a memory that had never happened. Even the faucet seemed different when I looked in the mirror, water reflecting the faint glow of something behind me that wasn't there. I started sleeping in the living room, away from mirrors, but reflections appeared elsewhere: spilled coffee, the polished floor, the microwave glass. Each time, the figure tilted its head, studying, learning, knowing my patterns. I installed blackout curtains, covering every window, and removed any mirrors I could. But in the middle of the night, I would still see its eyes and shiny surfaces I hadn't noticed. The corner of my laptop, the toaster, even the keys on my keyboard. It followed me like a shadow in reverse, unseen yet always present in every reflection. I tried to leave town, packing quickly, but when I looked into my rearview mirror at dawn, it was sitting in the back seat, staring. The road stretched empty, but the figure mirrored every movement I made, step by step, mile by mile. When I returned, I found more symbols etched into surfaces, faint but unmistakable. I realized it didn't need mirrors anymore. The Veilwalkers had learned to exist in the surfaces of the world, bending reflections wherever I looked. I haven't touched any mirrors since, afraid that they might notice my curiosity, my fear. Sometimes at night, I can hear faint whispers in the glass, soft voices tracing my name, counting steps I haven't taken yet. I almost wish I hadn't looked that first time, that I hadn't brushed my teeth in front of the mirror. They are patient, waiting for the next reflection I can't resist, and I know they will find me again. I don't dare leave any reflective surface exposed, yet I can feel them in every polished corner, every pane of glass. The apartment feels smaller now, tighter, constricted by their silent watch. I can't sleep without fearing what might be lurking just beyond my vision, waiting in the next reflection. Every time I close my eyes, I imagine them tilting their heads, studying me, learning my every habit. I don't know if they are real, or if I've become a part of the reflection itself. Sometimes I think I see them when I look in my own eyes, a faint glow flickering deep inside my irises. I try to focus on breathing, on normality, but the presence is patient, silent, unblinking. I've learned to move slowly, to avoid glancing at any reflective surface, but even my memories of mirrors feel tainted. I almost wish I could leave the apartment forever, though I know even that may not save me from their patient watch. I keep telling myself it's just fatigue, imagination, paranoia, but the Veilwalkers exist somewhere, beyond the surface, always tilting their heads. Sometimes I hear a soft scraping, a slight movement behind glass I know should be empty. I don't sleep. I don't blink when near reflections, always scanning, always anticipating. I haven't looked in the mirror for weeks, yet I know they are there, waiting, and one day I might not be able to resist looking again. And when I do, I know they will step closer than ever, tilting their heads, watching, waiting. The thread whisperers in my walls. It started with a loose thread hanging from the corner of my bedroom wall, thin and dark, swaying even when the air was still. At first, I thought it was just insulation or a bit of old wiring, but the strand moved like it had weight, twitching softly when I stepped near it. I reached out to brush it away, and it pulled back into the wall as if retreating, slipping through a gap too small for anything living. That night, I heard faint tapping from inside the drywall, rhythmic and deliberate, like fingers drumming patterns on a hollow surface. The thread reappeared later, dangling again, though I hadn't touched the wall or opened the window. Over the next few days, more threads appeared, thin black strands sliding from the baseboards, from under my door, from the smallest cracks. Each one moved with purpose, never drifting like dust or cobwebs, but crawling slowly in my direction when I wasn't looking. I tried pulling one out, but the moment I touched it, the thread tensed like muscle and snapped back into the wall. The tapping continued at night, soft whispers trailing behind it, as though the threads were communicating through the walls. I began sleeping with the lights on, but the threads didn't seem to care. They appeared in the brightest corners, swaying gently. One morning, I woke to find a thread wrapped around the leg of my chair, coiled like something claiming territory. I removed it and tossed it into the trash, but later it was gone, the can empty, the lid open, as if something had crawled out. Small holes began appearing on the walls, tiny entry points the threads used to slip in and out, expanding gradually. Some nights, I would wake to the feeling of something brushing lightly against my ankle, only to find a thin thread retreating under the bed. The whispers grew clearer, faint murmurs in a language I couldn't understand, but always close, always surrounding me. I told myself it had to be pests or wiring issues, something normal, but the threads moved in ways that defied logic. They crawled in patterns, forming symbols near the corners, looping and knotting themselves into strange shapes before unraveling. I tried blocking the cracks with tape, but the tape peeled away overnight, shredded softly like something had chewed through it. I could swear I heard breathing behind the walls, slow and steady, matching the sway of the threads as they emerged. The tapping followed me from room to room, always just behind, always one step out of sight. One evening, I found threads arranged on my kitchen floor, forming a shape that resembled a handprint pressed flat against the tiles. When I stepped near it, the threads scattered instantly, sliding across the floor like living lines, retreating into new cracks. The walls themselves looked different, bulging in subtle places, as if something inside pressed gently from the other side. I stopped turning off the lights completely, unable to handle the thought of threads crawling toward me in total darkness. The whispers became constant, faint but unrelenting, drifting from the walls, floor, even the ceiling. I tried leaving the apartment for a few days, but when I returned, the threads lined the hallway like they had waited for my return. Inside, every surface held traces of them curled in corners, draped on doorknobs, woven lightly around objects I hadn't touched. They seemed excited, vibrating softly as I stepped inside, following my movements with gentle sways. I found new holes in the drywall, larger this time, edges frayed like something had widened them from inside. The whispers grew louder when I approached the holes, voices rising and falling in soft rhythmic pulses. That night, the threads moved more boldly, sliding onto my bed as I tried to sleep, brushing across my sheets like searching fingers. I sat up instantly, heart pounding, watching them withdraw slowly, as though teasing me, almost playful in their hesitation. The tapping behind the walls intensified, a frantic pattern that echoed through the apartment, vibrating lightly beneath my feet. I pressed my ear to the wall and heard breathing again, closer, clearer, accompanied by faint scraping sounds. Something shifted behind the drywall, the silhouette of fingers pressing outward, dragging across the inside surface. I backed away, terrified, but the threads began emerging in waves from every crack, sliding toward me with impossible coordination. I nearly tripped trying to escape, knocking over my lamp, the room plunging into flickering shadows as the threads reached my ankles. They wrapped gently at first, then tightened, pulling lightly as if urging me closer to the wall. I tore them off and ran into the hallway, but more threads followed, slipping under the doorframe like thin black serpents. I didn't sleep at all that night, pacing the hallway until dawn, the tapping behind the walls following every step. Now the threads wait at the edges of my vision, swaying softly whenever I look their way, whispering in voices that sound almost familiar. I've stopped trying to remove them. They always return, stronger, more coordinated, as if they learn each time. The walls feel thinner now, bowing slightly with each breath I hear from the other side. I know something is waiting, watching, studying me through the smallest cracks. And with every passing night, the whispers grow louder, threading their way deeper into the apartment and into me. I almost wish I hadn't tried to pull that first thread from the wall. Now the thread whisperers know where I sleep, and they're only getting closer. The hollow smile in my neighbor's apartment. I moved into the new building thinking it was quiet, safe, normal, but the moment I glanced across the hall, I saw it. A figure standing perfectly still in the doorway, its face frozen in a grotesque grin that stretched too wide, too sharp. I blinked, thinking it must be a reflection or shadow, but the smile didn't fade, and the figure didn't move. Every night since, I catch glimpses of that grin in the hallway, sometimes in fleeting reflections in the polished floors. It's unnerving how consistent it is, appearing in the same corner, tilting its head just enough to watch me. I asked neighbors about strange people or pranks, but everyone seemed oblivious, normal, dismissive, and I felt more isolated. The smile began appearing inside my apartment as well, first in mirrors, then in polished table surfaces, and even the reflection in the kettle. It doesn't move, yet it's always facing me, frozen, tilting its head as if mocking my fear. I tried to photograph it, but the camera shows nothing, just empty hallway and my own nervous expression. I realized it wasn't just a prank. It had learned my routines, showing up when I was most vulnerable. The first night I heard it laugh, faint at first, almost like a whisper tickling my ears, curling into my dreams. The sound grew over the following nights, echoing across the building, always coming from just beyond the corner of my vision. I started locking doors, covering reflective surfaces, but the smile found new ways to appear, bending light and shadow unnaturally. It seems to thrive in corners, doorways, narrow spaces where my eyes can't focus, waiting for me to look directly. One evening, I thought I saw its shadow extend along the wall, creeping, stretching toward my bedroom door. The following nights, it appeared on objects, cups, books, even folded laundry, always with that unnerving, fixed grin. Sometimes it feels like it's closer than the wall, separating our apartments, tilting its head over my shoulder when I sit alone. I can't sleep. Every creak, every knock makes my heart jump, imagining that smile appearing just at the edge of vision. I left a note on my door, asking if anyone else saw anything, but it was ripped off the next morning, replaced with a tiny drawn smile. That tiny sketch mirrored the one I saw each night, perfectly identical, and I realized it was watching even when I wasn't. I tried recording with my phone again, leaving it on a tripod facing the hallway, but the video shows only an empty corridor. Yet in my peripheral vision, I catch glimpses of movement, a fleeting tilt of a head, a glint in the dark where the grin should be. I've stopped walking alone at night, taking detours through the building, avoiding corners where shadows gather unnaturally. Sometimes I see faint scratches on walls near the corners, small, deliberate, forming shapes that resemble jagged smiles. I started leaving tiny offerings near the hallway, a cup of water, a scrap of paper, hoping it would leave me alone, but it never did. One night, I awoke to the sound of whispering, soft giggles that seemed to drift from my neighbor's door across the hall. I dared not look directly, but the room felt smaller, heavier, as if the walls themselves were pressing inward. The following morning, the tiny drawing of the smile had grown, smeared across the paper with deliberate precision, eyes staring back at me. I tried explaining to friends, but even they looked at me strangely, doubting my senses, leaving me alone with the grin. It's patient, calculating, always waiting for me to look, to acknowledge it. Sometimes I think it moves in ways I cannot perceive, tilting its head in moments I miss, always present, even when the hallway is empty. I can't open my blinds fully without fearing its shadow will stretch across my floor. I've stopped using mirrors, polished surfaces, even reflective silverware, anything that might reveal it, or allow it to appear closer. I feel its gaze in the elevator, in the stairwell, tilting its head over my shoulder when I think I'm unobserved. Each night, it seems bolder, appearing in places where it shouldn't be able to reach, defying the rules of space and distance. The building feels alive, warped by its presence, hallways stretching in impossible angles where the grin can hide. I hear faint scratching in the walls at night, moving slowly toward my bedroom. Each scrape a countdown I can't measure. I have begun leaving small lights on near corners, hoping the brightness will keep it away, but it seems unaffected. I saw it in my dream last night, leaning closer, tilting its head, its grin wider than ever, mocking every attempt to escape. When I woke, the tiny drawn smiles were still there, on surfaces I hadn't noticed before, perfectly identical, perfectly patient. I feel trapped, the hallway and my apartment a cage, the grin ever present in the shadows, tilting, watching, waiting. I've tried ignoring it, but the smile finds me in every reflective surface I cannot cover, every corner I cannot illuminate. I almost wish I had never moved here, never glanced across the hall that first evening, never seen that grotesque tilt of the head. I know it's learning, studying, growing bolder with every night I survive, always patient, unblinking, and unyielding. I don't dare walk the hall alone at night, and yet I know one day I might have no choice, and the hollow smile will be waiting. It's not gone. It's never gone. It tilts its head still, waiting for me to acknowledge it, ready for the next time I look. The lantern eyes in my apartment window. I had just finished cleaning my apartment when I noticed a faint glow flickering outside my window, the kind of light that didn't belong to any street lamp. At first, I thought it was a reflection from the building across, but the glow shifted slightly, too deliberate, too alive. I leaned closer, brushing the curtain aside, and glimpsed a pair of bright yellow eyes peering back at me from the alley below. They didn't blink, didn't move like normal eyes, just stared, suspended in the darkness like tiny lanterns in air. My heart jumped, and I stepped back, convinced it was a trick of my tired mind, but the light remained steady and unyielding. Over the next few nights, the eyes appeared at the same hour, always in the corner of my window, always watching. I tried turning on the hallway light, thinking it might scare whoever it was away, but the glow only seemed to intensify. Shadows stretched unnaturally across my apartment floor, curling toward the window as if drawn to the light outside. One night, I noticed the glow wasn't alone. Faint silhouettes lingered behind it, blurred but unmistakably humanoid. I whispered to myself that it was impossible, that people couldn't float like that, couldn't remain perfectly still for hours without moving. I started leaving my curtains closed, but sometimes, in the middle of the night, the light would spill in from cracks, tiny slivers of golden eyes piercing the dark. They didn't just watch, they studied, tilting their heads in patterns that mimicked mine, movements precise, alien. I tried recording them with my phone, but the footage showed only empty darkness, the glow absent, as if it had never been there. Notes started appearing outside my door, folded scraps of paper with lanterns drawn crudely in ink, though no one had entered. Each drawing depicted different arrangements, sometimes dozens of tiny eyes in the alley, always facing my window. One night, the glow appeared inside the apartment itself, reflected on my floorboards, moving against the grain of the shadows. My reflection in the mirror shifted oddly as I approached it, and for a moment, the yellow eyes blinked from behind my own face. I tried to close the blinds, but they slid open on their own, revealing the alley empty, except for the faint glow now hovering on the fire escape railing. The building was silent, yet the eyes gave off a subtle humming, a vibration that tickled my bones, crawling beneath my skin. I couldn't sleep. Every sound, every flicker of light drew my gaze to the window, where they waited, patient and unblinking. I began to notice traces ashes on the sill, faint scorch marks where the glow touched, almost like tiny lanterns had burned the wood. I tried ignoring them, but their presence crept into everything. The fridge, the bathroom mirror, even the reflection in my coffee. My friends stopped returning my messages. When I tried to explain, I realized I didn't even know how to describe what I was seeing. The alley itself seemed altered, elongated in impossible ways. Corners that shouldn't exist, forming frames where the eyes could hide. On one particularly dark night, I opened the window slightly, and a gust of wind carried a faint metallic scent, like copper and rust. The eyes blinked for the first time that night, slow, deliberate motions, synchronized, almost mocking. And I could swear I heard whispers carried on the wind. I fell back against the wall, heart pounding, realizing that whatever watched me didn't just observe, they knew my patterns, my routines. My apartment felt smaller, like the shadows themselves pressed against the walls, converging on the window where the glow still lingered. I couldn't bring myself to sleep, staring at the glow until dawn, wondering if it would ever leave or if it was patient enough to wait indefinitely. That morning, I found one of the notes again, folded neatly under my door. The lantern drawn on it had an extra pair of eyes staring back at me. I haven't opened my curtains since, but I can feel them watching from every reflective surface, lingering in the corners of rooms I thought empty. I almost wish I hadn't peeked that first night, and I can't shake the thought that the next time I do, the lantern eyes might finally step inside.